Good morning on my behalf. It's great to be here to give a short presentation of the work we are doing in the Finnish Wildlife Agency. Our agency is the state organization in Finland responsible for hunting administration and wildlife management. And we are working closely with the landowners and hunters throughout the country on private lands. To start with, I'm shortly telling you about our nature management and conservation strategy. Our vision is that the objective of the Finnish Wildlife Agency is to improve the habitats of the game species, especially game birds, by management plans and related development projects in wetlands, agricultural areas and forestry areas. And we always implement our actions in close cooperation with the landowners, agricultural and forestry sector, environmental sector, and hunters and villagers. This is an aerial picture of Finnish landscape. It's mostly boreal forests, scattered with a lot of lakes and pieces of agricultural land in between. We have our valuable game birds, the grouse species, capercaillie, hazel grouse, black grouse, and willow grouse inhabiting the forest and peatlands and mires. We have ducks and geese in the wetlands and lakes, and partridge in the agricultural dominated areas. When we provide habitat within forestry and agriculture for these game birds, we actually at the same time do the actions and work we need to do for water protection, flood retention, recreational use, providing opportunities for hunting and bird watching, and also it has contact surface to the climate change adaptation and mitigation. It's all about ecosystem service pieces coming together. The Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry has prepared a bunch of management plans for game species. In this speech, I'm going to mainly talk about the national strategy for wetlands and waterfowl. And also I'm going to show a few slides on partridge projects and also managing the forest in a way that our grouse species are still surviving under the commercial forestry. As Heli mentioned, we had a rather big LIFE project in Finland a few years ago, ended last year, the LIFE plus Return of Rural Wetlands. The main objective of this project was to promote interest among the local stakeholders, especially hunters and landowners, to take care of their waterfowl habitats and biodiversity in their own regions, in their own villages and own farms. The way we tried to do it was by building a network of demonstrative wetland sites with the landowners, bottom up, to show the positive example that it's not actually that complicated, and it's not awfully expensive, and almost every village has the opportunity to do work for the wetlands and waterfall. We managed to create 48 sites throughout the country, covering 340 hectares. So each of the regions has a demonstrative wetland site to show the example nearby the people. We did a lot of active communication with stakeholders and hunters, all levels in the society, and had a lot of lectures and education to hunting association and landowner meetings, farmer education events. And also active media work, especially through our Hunters magazine that is mailed 6 times a year to every single hunter in Finland. It's a very good channel. We have a good webpage, and a total cost of the project ended up being 1.8 million euros for 5 years. Well, what kind of wetlands we were looking to do within our project? We searched for sites where the local landowner, local villagers really wanted to restore or recreate a wetland, bottom-up project. We wanted to support the existing interest on habitat restoration and wildlife management to really promote the positive messages and experiences to the neighbors and other people. Primarily, we searched for flooded wetlands because they're the most cost-effective way to provide brood habitat for our quarry waterfowl and also to promote biodiversity. Of course, often the ground is flat and it's not able to flood, then we were able to excavate and create the wetlands in another way. We had all the money in the project to do the whole process of planning and concrete actions. But we didn't want to do all. We want to have the landowners to pay their share. And on case-by-case basis, the landowners either put their own time and work power or paid part of the cost, because the own input promotes ownership. And ownership is a very vital issue for the further maintenance of the wetland. It's not just abandoned, but it's the farmers or landowners' own wetland. Then it will be taken care of. For the landowners, we wanted to have minimum bureaucracy. We did all the nasty paperwork. The landowner gave their point of view to the planning, and we did together. We organized the excavators to the site, and it was kind of a very nice win-win deal. And we had a hands-on approach, the fastest wetlands. From the day the landowner called us that, I have a nice place, would you like to help me? 6 months later, there was 3-hectare wetland. Things can go fast when everything goes fine. Just as an example of one of our sites, about 1.5 hour drive from here, low-laying agricultural land, peatland field that has been compressed, and it's too wet for active farming. And the landowner thought, well, it's not good for agriculture anymore, maybe it would be nice as a wetland. This was taken in June 2013. In August 2013, we had an excavator there for 4 or 5 days, building a dam and making some extra excavations. And 2 years later, the site looks like this. About 2 hectares of wetland, full of waterfall, with cost of 11,600 euros, including all building costs, all planning costs. Not too bad. But it won't be a good waterfall habitat if it's not taken care of. Luckily, the nearby farmer owning cattle was happy to introduce shoreline grazing to that small wetland. The landowner was happy to have cattle around, building life to the landscape. Also, not from that wetland, but from nearby site, mowing and cutting the shoreline vegetation is important to keep the landscape open, preventing the overgrowing. We have a huge problem with invasive alien predators in Finland, namely raccoon dog and mink. We really promote to manage these populations to give the chance for ground nesting birds to survive. We now harvest an average of 1 raccoon dog per square kilometer in southern Finland. So it's pretty dense. It's also about cattail management to keep the wetlands open and controlling the fish populations to reduce the competition between duck broods and fish. This is from the example site Vitikankorpi. 2013 there was no waterfall. 2015 there was 56 ducklings plus the adult birds in July count. So that's quite a good development. It's nice to go on that site in midsummer, and almost every time there is 100 around waterfall swimming and feeding on 2 hectare wetland. And of course, for many landowners, it's the hunting or bird watching that is the key incentive why the landowners are interested to do such a thing. It provides well-being in the local villages and for the landowners. Few other examples. In northern Finland, there was a restored old drain at Apameyer. We brought the water back to it, 8 hectares with 5,000 euros. Flooded, abandoned peat mine after use of a peat production area works very well for waterfall. And also restored lake that had a deep drainage channel through the lake bottom to drain the upstream agricultural land. And within the project, it was restored in 2 sections by building embankments alongside the drainage channel, so we could bring the lake back without sacrificing the drainage of the upstream watershed. It cost a bit more, but it was a rather practical solution. We are using the same approach in Finland, also in the partridge management plan, bottom-up with the landowners. The partridge management plan is actually implemented by the Nature and Game Management Trust partridge project. It's mostly about making the use of our agro-environmental subsidies, such as buffer zone, wildlife fields, and other actions, that farmers would actually use them in their land to provide habitat for partridge. We're also promoting to shift from the intensive monoagriculture to, I would say, the modern way of thinking, where profitable modern agriculture have crop rotation, water protection structures, wildlife habitat and biodiversity, all mixed in the same openings and same village landscapes. We can have buffer zones along ditches and rivers, wildlife food plots, avoiding unnecessary plowing, and manage the forest edges for wildlife. It's also the same about the water protection, biodiversity. It's also a nicer landscape than the black mold plowed field in November. It's nice to have more green and light in the landscape. And also the water issues, restoring wetlands and rivers. And it can be very simple, like in Chris's nice presentation, just a strip of bird mix along the ditches can really make a difference for partridge and other game species, and also all the birds and wildlife. For the grouse habitats and species, it's clear that the future of these species in the commercial forests, and in Finland, hunters own almost half of the commercial forests of Finland. It's most of all an attitude issue, not a money issue. Because on the left picture, it's the business as usual, everything is cleared for commercial forest, but without sacrificing any euro out of the profitability of the forest, we can leave some of the undergrowth and small trees. Make the clearing clever, leave habitat for the wildlife. And here's a good picture of a pine stand where logs are profitably harvested, and the little spruce trees have been left there to provide the shelter for the crows. In my eyes, these spruce trees make the difference between pine plantation and a forest where wildlife can exist. As I said in the beginning, it's all about the ecosystem services, seeing the big picture. We have the nature conservation that is important. We have agriculture, forestry. And wildlife management can be seen as a cross-cutting issue that can benefit all of these sectors, that we can save the wildlife and berries and the mushroom and clean waters in Finland. And I really like the way things are advertised in North America. In Finland, we are not very good salesmen or telling the message very nicely how to activate the farmers. But in, for example, Ducks Unlimited Canada is having this young farmer leaning on the fence post saying, well, wetlands and woodplots are good for my land and it's good for my business. I think this is a way we should advertise these issues in Finland as well. The last slide. We are working with biodiversity, wildlife management, water protection, ecosystem services. It's all about the same buffer zone, same wetlands, same fallow and set-aside areas we need to have in the farms to make the difference. Multifunctionality is the word I would like to raise. And the future of our game birds, it relies on this just a regular landscape of Finland, the wider countryside. And we have opportunities in every single farm and every single village. It's all about the question of seeing the opportunities, using the funding channels we have, and maybe changing the mindset and attitude, seeing the land use in a bit different way. Then we can incorporate the wildlife habitats and profitable agriculture and forestry. And when things are done well, it can actually be rewarded with the wildlife estate label. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mikko. And now some comments and questions for Mikko. Questions about things in Finland or in general?
Yes, Hagelberg, about establishing a wetland. It costs money. But what I would like to point out is that it's a very long period investment. If you make it properly and take care of the dam and things like this, it can be there for decades. So it's really a long time investment. And I have seen some wetlands that have been established in 1960s or 1970s, and they still look fine. It gives good ideas about how we can, with quite easy measures and with easy tricks, do a lot of good for a long time in the future.
Yes, and in Finland we have rather well-functioning funding system in agricultural subsidy system for establishing wetlands. Some problems, but I think we are going in a good direction.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mikko. Mikko, it's very nice
Thank you.
presentations, very nice examples, and I think it gives us all a nice feeling that some good, positive results can be achieved easily and with a small amount of funding. I was just wondering, did any of them go wrong? With any of these little projects that that didn't work nicely?
Well, in our Wetland Life project, I must say it went surprisingly well. But if we look in the background, because it was totally bottom up, we have a target of making at least 30 sites in the whole country. And there is a long tradition of hunters doing voluntary wildlife habitat management and wetlands. So there was a big pool of sites to choose from. Landowners very actively proposed sites for us, almost 1,000 proposals. And we were able to pick those that were the good ones that we can actually accomplish within a few-year project. So there was 950 disappointments of landowners who didn't get to participate in our project, but that's for the future. I would say there is a very big interest among Finnish landowners for this type of work, and I think we just need more people giving the advice and telling how to do it and coordinate the funding channels, which are rather bureaucratic.
Okay, thank you very much. This is Tom.
Joo, Tommi Arfpan from Söderlångvik Gård. One question about the wetlands and the predator control. When you have built this wetland already, that's okay, but how do you continually do the predator work? Who is doing that, and what's the motivation for these people to do this work?
We advise the landowners and local hunters to be very effective on the predator control around the wetlands, to promote waterfowl brood production. And their key incentive is that if they don't keep the raccoon dog numbers and mink numbers down, they're not going to have a good waterfowl population on the wetland. So it's in their benefit. Of course, it's totally dependent on the local people, whether they do the management of predators well or not. On most sites, I would say, we have rather good control.